Well, this next interview is all about finally going for the one thing you felt you were meant to do with your life. It may mean switching careers or making big changes in your lifestyle, but that courage to go for it can bring more to your life than you'll ever know. Well, executive turned filmmaker Melissa Davey shares her inspired story with our executive producer, Risa.
Melissa, hi. I am so excited to get the chance to chat with you. As someone who is looking at 60 this year, I really love the opportunity to chat with you about revisiting your goals, revisiting your passions, and pursuing things that may have seemed too big to be reality, but you've done it.
Yeah.
So as a filmmaker, a documentarian, I want to talk to you a little bit about those early years and what brought you to this point to becoming a filmmaker.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It's great to meet you. And 60, by the way, is very young. I'm 74 years old now, and became a filmmaker at 65. So that's what people will be hearing. Like, how did that happen? When I was younger, when I was a child, I was always very, very curious about the world around me and people and their stories. So I was always taking detours and risks and probably doing some things that if my parents knew I had been doing them, they wouldn't have appreciated it too much. But it was who I was from the very beginning. And that is a person who's really curious about other people's stories. And I think that it comes from being curious about myself and how I fit into the world and what I should be doing and shouldn't be doing. And to me, I learned a lot as a youngster just by talking with older people, middle-aged people, younger people, hearing their stories and hearing how they view the world always made me want to look at myself and how I viewed that same scenario.
I think that telling everybody stories, I think that curiosity keeps you young. I really firmly believe that, because when you have a natural curiosity about people and things and places, you're always going to kind of have a youthful approach to all of those subjects. And in Beyond 60, your first film, you talk about all of those stories. You interview a lot of people. Give me a rundown of what we could see in that film. And it's streaming now, correct?
Yes, it is streaming now. And you're right, Beyond 60 was my first attempt at trying to figure out if I could be a filmmaker. And because I decided to do documentaries, obviously I was interested in helping to tell other people's stories. But when I decided to try this, and I sat there with myself saying, okay, you've said this out loud that you're going to quit your job and become a filmmaker. So what kind of film will you make? And to me, at that point, documentaries seemed the easiest because I was very comfortable listening to and helping to tell other people's stories throughout my whole life, at work or at home or whatever it was that I was doing. So Beyond 60 came up in my mind as a possibility, and I stuck with it. And if you watch the film, as you said, it is streaming now, you will hear the stories of 9 different women from around the country, completely different backgrounds, completely different stories, but all showing you that thread of resilience in their life and their continued relevance as they age. They're not hanging it up. No matter whether they're 63 or 87 or whatever it is, they're continuing on and doing new things.
Fantastic. I saw in your bio that you had a very fateful day. These are one of those life-defining moments, and it was a day you spent on the set with M. Night Shyamalan.
Yes.
Can you tell me, A, how you got on the set with him, and B, because that's exciting, and B, what really occurred that day that made you say, it's time for me to make films?
Yeah. Okay, I was 65 at the time, sitting in a big corporate career that I'd been, sitting at for more than 2 decades. Loved my job, no ageism in the company, so I didn't have to leave. But there was something about turning 65 that it hit me. I looked at the calendar. I was like, wow, I'm 65 this year. How can I be still sitting here? Why am I, and what am I going to do, and what's next? And, my curiosity had really kicked in. And I started making lists of all the things that I hadn't done. And then I asked myself, well, why haven't you done them? Because you're 65 and you're still doing this, and you could certainly do it in your sleep. So why haven't you done something new? And I really started to have that conversation with myself. I ended up at a meeting in DC, it was a congressional meeting, and I was there to testify on Social Security issues, which was my specialty area. And in the company, I had built a division for them, which was national in scope. And, I was just sitting at this meeting, which was like Groundhog Day. In DC, you get a lot of that. And I remember leaving thinking, okay, this is it. I'd already been thinking about my age and what I was doing, and film kept, coming up to the top of my list as something that I was curious about. And that day that I left that meeting very early, I ended up with a friend in a car in Chester County, Pennsylvania, where I live. And we were driving up a dirt road to take her daughter to a horse barn. And she said, I come up here every day, and I think there's somebody making a film over there. And I looked over, and there it was. They were making a film. So we pulled over to the side of the road, and I said, I bet I know who it is, because we're in the woods in Chester County, Pennsylvania. I knew M. Night Shyamalan lived here. He films most of his films around us. And it was a spooky looking day and a spooky looking atmosphere. And I said, I bet it's him. So I looked it up on the iPhone, and up came a picture of him on his website. And the picture was where we were sitting at that moment. So I said, well, it's definitely him. And then I noticed a little red button on his website that said Charity Buzz. And I didn't know what it was, so curiosity, I hit the button, and it said, win a day on the set with M. Night Shyamalan. And all of the proceeds that you would be betting would go to his education foundation, which I knew nothing about, but was very interested in reading about it. So, my friend was like, this is a sign, you have to do this. So I did. I started betting, and I was betting heavily against a dentist in New Jersey who also wanted to spend a day on the set. And short story, I won the day. And all of the proceeds that I bet went to his foundation. And I spent 8 to 10 hours with him, on the set when he was filming The Visit in Philadelphia. And that's how, and the message that I got from him, and again, I'd never done this before. I thought I was going to be put in a chair, but I wasn't. I was behind the camera with him, and he was talking with me the whole time. And the amazing thing that happened was at lunch. We took a break. We ate lunch. We sat together. He asked me what I did for work, and I tried to explain this big corporate job to somebody who's only been a filmmaker his entire life. And he kind of looked at me quizzically and said, oh, what do you really want to do? And I said, oh, I want your job. And he looked at me and said, well, you better hurry up. And at that moment, it hit me like a ton of bricks. He was probably kidding, but it hit me right at the time that I was thinking about making a change and trying something new and difficult. And he said, you better hurry up. And that's when I said, I'm going to hurry up.
I could listen to you talk all day about filmmaking, because it is a secret passion of mine as well. And I think having those moments where you can spend time with someone who can inspire you in such a way is unbelievable. It's kismet. It's meant to be. Melissa Davey, thank you so much for taking time with us, sharing your story with us. And we're going to watch for Beyond 60 on streaming right now.
Melissa Davey has 2 films celebrating women over 60, and they're streaming now on several platforms, including Apple TV and Prime Video. Search for Beyond 60 and Climbing into Life. Learn more about Melissa at melissadavey.com.